Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us on this midweek edition of Inside Africa. The African Union and European Union have vowed to strengthen their political and economic ties in the future. They formed a joint partnership in 2007 to facilitate relative balance of growth in Africa and Europe. The 6th AU-EU Commission's annual meeting is due to take place shortly.
The African Union and the European Union in 2007 have agreed to collaborate in the areas of peace and security, maintaining democratic governance and promoting trade and investment, also regional integration and infrastructure, achieving Millennium Development Goals and averting the adverse effects of climate change and protecting the environment are also subjects of cooperation. On Tuesday, Ambassador Gary Queen's heads of AU delegation to the AU underlines what Africa's priorities should be.
Both the AU Commission and the European Union need to continue to work together and put a lot of emphasis on peace and security. But at the same time, we totally agree with Dr. Zuma and the Commission on the need to balance up and do more in terms of the long-term development agenda.
Ambassador Jean-Baptiste Natama, Chief of Staff Bureau of the Chairperson of the AUC, stresses on stability for economic undertakings.
Peace and security will still remain one of the priorities. Peaceful conditions and stability are a requirement for initiatives on development, but also for private investment on the continent if we are expecting foreign direct investment.
Queens also says that Africa is relatively becoming stable since the last 2 or 3 decades.
Africa, over the last 20 or 30 years, the number of conflicts and the impact of those conflicts in terms of human lives has been declining a lot.
Natama underscores that both Africa and Europe could learn from each other good practices based on their interests.
Europe has a great achievement. We can learn from Europe. And we do have also great achievement, and Europe can learn from us.
Addis Ababa is due to host the 6th AU-EU Commission's annual meeting from 25 to 26 April at the AU Conference Hall.
This regard to road signs and traffic regulations by some drivers usually lead to road accidents. Across Ghana, many lives have been lost in what are avoidable accidents. To minimize this, the head of the Police Traffic Department, ACP Awuni, says the police administration is poised to implement road traffic regulations and prohibit indiscipline on the roads.
Statistics from the Police Motor Traffic and Transport Unit, MTTU, indicates that a total of 2,249 people died last year as a result of motor accidents, with 14,181 others getting injured. This involved 21,817 vehicles, comprising of 10,587 commercial vehicles, 8,790 private vehicles, and 2,440 motorbikes. In 2011, a total of 19,530 vehicles were involved in accidents, with 13,372 people sustaining injuries. Eastern Region topped the list of casualties with 359 deaths, followed by Ashanti Region with 314 deaths. Again, 5,399 motor traffic offences were recorded, with a fine of 894,285 Ghana cedis being collected. Some parts of Accra, due to the increase in vehicular traffic, some people have adopted the use of motor bicycles as taxis. Explaining the dangers associated with the use of the motor bicycles as taxis, as well as the lack of wearing crash helmets, former police commander of the Motor Traffic and Transport Unit, ACP Andrew Awuni, said his outfit would intensify the enforcement of the laws.
We have a problem because, like I always maintain, you get to the place, the policeman is there on traffic direction. he cannot leave a traffic point and run and follow a motorbike. That is, no, it's not practicable. The policeman is standing there, the motorbike rider has crossed the traffic light, and he should fly and follow him or do what? In the meantime, he has no other means. You see, so it becomes a problem. When people start talking about policemen stand there when the motorbike riders run, I ask myself, what do we expect them to do?
On the other hand, motorcyclists in Tamale metropolis are adhering to traffic rules, and very few of them sometimes mistakenly run through the red lights.
You shouldn't be given a driving license when you are not a qualified driver. So I suppose that any motorbike driver who has a license has gone through the procedure. Else, the DVLA should not give you a driving license.
ACP Awuni underscored the need for the training of private, commercial and government drivers in order for them to adequately understand the importance of road traffic signs. He said the MPTU's focus this year would also be on the need for passengers to report recalcitrant drivers, adding that the police could not practically be in every vehicle to check a driver's misconduct.
A motorbike is not supposed to be running in between vehicles. But what do we see? So they will even cross you when you are at your blind side. They will cross you. If you are not careful, you will knock them. They are supposed to be in queue, just as vehicles are in queue. See, and they are supposed, if the vehicle is there, the motorbike is supposed to follow him, but not to run in between two vehicles. But that is, again, you can't get policemen all over the place to do that job.
Some drivers spoke to GTV News.
I'm a taxi driver, and this Okada business is worrying. I can easily knock them down and be in trouble. They should be banned. This Okada business is worrying. I prefer they should be banned from the system.
This Okada business has led to an increase in crime rate in the city, so we are appealing to the authorities to stop their activities.
The public have also been called upon to be vigilant when crossing the road, since most accidents which occurred could have been avoided if drivers and pedestrians observed road signs and regulations.
Over in Nigeria, traffic congestion is a challenge commuters battle with on a daily basis in Lagos, while some attribute this limitation amongst motorists. Others say initial plan and development of the city is the root cause. Now, the following reporter takes a look at Lagos traffic with a revealing phenomenon that escalates the situation.
Traffic jams, a daily routine for commuters in Lagos, especially during the prime times, which are the morning and evening rush hours. Experts agree that the location of the headquarters of major companies on Lagos Island makes the traffic flow one way. Majority of the motorists hit the road to the island on the early hours of working days and return almost the same time in the evening. This routine does not help the flow of traffic, and when the roads get congested, impatience makes the situation worse. This situation has been the cause of traffic congestion in Lagos. However, in recent years, another dimension has compounded the situation: broken down vehicles. This phenomenon has become a worrisome trend, especially when it involves trucks and heavy-duty vehicles. As a result of these, long traffic jams occur, leading to frustration and waste of precious times on the roads. The question now is whether motorists are given their vehicles adequate attention in terms of maintenance or not. And if it is established that the majority of motorists do maintain their vehicles, then there must be another reason for the rise in broken down vehicles in our roads. That is left for you to judge.
Taking you now to Mali, French and African forces have driven rebels out of their strongholds in the northern part of the West African nation. But what Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb left behind may prove to be valuable equipment such as artillery, explosive devices, and even posters carrying their logo act as clues to their operations.
The town of Aguilhoc in northern Mali is now under the control of Tuareg rebels. But during most of last year, this was the place where Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb set up base. Instructions by top commanders are still legible on the walls. Many of the recruits apparently didn't read or write. The walls were used as blackboards to teach the Arabic alphabet. Remnants of heavy artillery are scattered around the place. Guns mostly brought from Libya or taken from the Malian army. And these metal tubes were specially shaped and cut to be turned into giant bombs. Hundreds of smaller tubes were also locally made to be used as improvised explosive devices or IEDs. As this rebel officer explains, they fill the tubes with explosives, insert a long wire through this hole so they can detonate the device from a distance. In January, French bombers leveled these buildings to the ground. At the site of the bombing was found this poster that carries the name and logo of one of the affiliates of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. It's called the Movement for the Sons of the Sahara for Justice. It was the head of this group who led the hostage-taking operation in the town of In Aminas in southern Algeria last January. The town of Aguilhoc was also the place where Al-Qaeda began experimenting with its own interpretation of the Sharia law. The first and only case of stoning to death for adultery in the area took place here.
They dug a ditch here and brought the couple in a pickup. The woman took off her shoes and quietly stepped into the ditch. The man did the same, but they told him it's not necessary to take off his shoes. They started to throw stones on them. The public watched without participating, but I ran away because I couldn't bear to see it.
Like Salik, many people in the village are still trying to make sense of life under Al-Qaeda rule.
They gathered people in mosques to warn them against idle talk or fun. Their young recruits began to force their fathers to grow beards. Every month, they would take off your turban to see if you have a beard.
We used to control everything, even the size of the cloth we could put on like this.
People here are extremely poor and they feel forgotten. Their main struggle was for mere survival in this harshest of desert climates. The old live in perpetual toil for life's basics. The young search for bits and pieces of a world they perceive as better than their own, risking to be torn between foreign ideologies and forces at war with each other on their own soil.
We leave West Africa and take you now to East Africa and we make our first stop in Uganda, where police in Nabingo have arrested a man accused of allegedly defying a 3-year-old girl. The child's mother, Edwina Nakanga, alleges that a neighbor, Charles Kingenyi, who is also a resident of Tega village in Nabingo in Sangis sub-county, led the child away while she was preparing juice.
Edwin Nankanga alleges 23-year-old Charles Chigenyi took her 3-year-old daughter out of her rental room into his without her consent. Nankanga only found out about the alleged sexual assault on her daughter after she was alerted by a landlord's grandson that Chigenyi had taken the girl into his house. The 3-year-old was found with injuries on her private parts and rushed to hospital.
Kati awo nenzire manju nembanga galo oluji lwange nembuuza omuvubuka eyabadde alima mwana waawo oyo landiredi alima wolabyeko linya omwana wange ng'akuyitako nangamba omwana ali mu nnyumba y'oyo omusajja.
However, Chigenyi denies the allegations and instead accuses Nankanga of blackmail because of a misunderstanding she has with his wife who was absent at the time.
Nzisinga nakuta omwana nandyogedde amazima nti banange nkuta omwana naye simanyi kiki kyandese kulu naye ngenda kufiira bwereere.
When we got that information, we sent in the detectives as soon as possible. They managed to get the suspect on site where he was, or where he had defied the kid from. We brought him, then we took the kid for medical examination. Then we got a medical report that clearly shows that the kid had been defiled. So that is how we took the matter. And up to now, we are having the man, we are processing his file. Anytime he's going to be ready for prosecution.
Chigenyi will be subjected to an HIV test and could face charges of aggravated defilement after police investigations.
Let's now take on this one that concerns Uganda and South Sudan. Business was paralyzed on the Elugu border along the Gulu-Juba road as Ugandan traders and drivers protested the killing of 5 people by unknown attackers. The attacker has sparked resentment in political and business quarters, with some people calling for suspension of transportation of goods into Juba.
2 of the 6 people were suspected to have been killed in an ambush at Nisitu Bridge, about 25 kilometers from the southern Sudan capital Juba, where Ugandan truck drivers from Aponyi Transporters Uganda Limited. According to the transport company, the deceased were returning to Kampala after delivering food on behalf of World Food Programme when they were gunned down by unknown men at about 6 p.m. on Sunday.
The driver who passed away by the names of Masaba Tom, driving UAN 557U, passed away instantly while he was shot, and the turnman, Tumwebaze Moses, who was also shot and passed away instantly.
The other 3 victims were truck drivers from Ethiopia and 1 from Kenya. The mood remained somber among most of the truck drivers and operators, many of whom claim that the Nisitu Bridge has turned into a death trap.
And Nisitu being that town, that area has been named as a black spot. The bus people were shot at the same spot, trailer drivers now at the same spot, Pan-Africa drivers at the same spot.
Iyo bwakora waramuruka ngeja icyakwa kusonga mu mundu icyagamba agamba jibu gruse ya garasende ugenda kwebuzabuza manya kinyine sene ngakubye sasi.
The remains of the deceased are expected to be transported back to Uganda tomorrow. The transporters have also vowed to lay down their tools if the security situation is not checked.
If things continue to be like this, for us what we are going to do, we shall be transporting their cargo up to the border, so they will be bringing their truck to collect their cargo.
Earlier in the day, the truck drivers parked their vehicles in protest of the killings, although later they resumed with their duties. These killings are also brewing anger among Uganda's legislators.
The government must take bold steps and be frank with the government of South Sudan that we cannot continue this way. Not with so much that we put to see that South Sudan is liberated.
The incident comes barely a month after the meeting between Uganda's police boss Kale Kaihura and his southern Sudan counterpart agreed on the joint security patrols along the Kampala-Gulu-Juba road to combat such incidences.
We talk agriculture now on this edition of Inside Africa. The maize necrosis disease has infected and destroyed maize crops in various regions across Kenya, such is Nyeri. According to farmers in the area, this is the 2nd season of crop failure, leading to food shortages in various families.
This is the situation in farms in Nyeri County, after the maize crop in most farms were affected by the maize neurosis disease that has seen a total crop failure in most farms in the region. According to farmers here, this is the 2nd season of crop failure, leaving most families staring at starvation.
I was expecting more than 10 bags, but I got only 2 bags.
The situation in the region has further been compounded by the fact that most farmers cannot afford certified seed, with most of them using seed from their last harvest.
The region is going through a food security crisis, which should be, maybe they might recover if the ongoing rains is good.
Now farmers are opting for onions and potatoes, which they say are less costly to plant, while hoping the government will intervene in their plight.
Sasa hujui kama hiyo mbegu ni baya ama sio baya. Sasa wewe ukikuja kupanda unapanda unakuta haikui poa.
The situation now called for serious intervention and community mobilization for quality and quantity production of food.
Egypt's judges have escalated the tone of their defiance to what they describe as an unprecedented assault on the judiciary. They gathered at the Judges Club after the Minister of Justice resigned in protest to proposed amendments to the judiciary law. They say the amendments would undermine the judiciary's independence.
Egypt's judges have escalated the tone of their defiance to what they describe as unprecedented assault on Egypt's judiciary. They gathered at the Judges Club after the Minister of Justice resigned in protest to proposed amendments to the judiciary law. They say the amendments would undermine the judiciary's independence.
What's happening is a violation of the Egyptian judiciary, and everyone must be alerted about the separation between executive and judicial powers.
The amendments proposed by President Morsi's ruling Freedom and Justice Party include lowering the age of retirement, forcing almost 3,000 judges into early retirement. Many believe the aim of the amendment is to get rid of judges of the Constitutional Court and replace them with government loyalists. During the press conference, the judges warned that they will stand firmly against attempts to violate the independence of the judiciary and that they might take the cause to international courts. The judges also stated that if the current pressure continues, they will not participate in the process of monitoring upcoming parliamentary elections.
The collapse of the judiciary means the collapse of the whole state, and this is why we called for this meeting, to tell the whole world that we are standing by the judge.
President Morsi responded to the resignation of the Minister of Justice by holding emergency meetings with Egypt's top judges and the Prosecutor General to discuss the controversial amendments. Following the meeting, it was announced that the President has agreed to suspend the amendment and that the Minister of Justice will remain in place. The National Salvation Front, the main opposition bloc, had called for demonstrations outside the Shura Council during the discussion of the amendments to put pressure on lawmakers against approving the amendment and to stand against what they described as attempts by the Muslim Brotherhood to take control of the judiciary. On another front, many of the president's supporters argue that the purification of the judicial system from Mubarak loyalists is crucial to achieving justice.
That item from Egypt brings us to the end of this edition of Inside Africa. Thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for more news on AFRIQUEMEDIA.